Student housing is such a unique industry. The more unique an industry is, the more important it is for that industry to have a resource and a platform to share ideas and data, to determine best practices, and a platform to simply promote networking among the professionals in that industry. That's what we are setting out to provide with Student Housing Insight. But what's even more unique about the student housing industry is how unique those professionals are. They want to make a positive impact on the students and the university communities they serve. They understand they have an opportunity to touch the future. They come to work every day looking for ways to make that future bright. If you're one of those people, come be a part of Student Housing Insight. Well, welcome to today's Shop Talk. Hope everyone is doing well. Would love to see in the comments where you're watching from, and also just want to make sure that everybody can hear me as well. This is going to be the last Shop Talk for the rest of this academic year. Great, got some folks in the chat already. Thanks, guys. So yeah, this is going to be the last one for the academic year. We're closing out things from some things from a pre-leasing standpoint. We'll talk with Charlie about when numbers will be final. It's typically sometime in late September because we're waiting on the West Coast properties to get their final move-ins done. But we're going to talk to him a little bit about where things have ended mid-month of July and what things are looking like. Again, if this is your first time joining us, Shop Talk is the student housing industry's monthly webinar produced by Student Housing Insight. I'm the CEO of Student Housing Insight. And I just want to thank you for joining us. If it's your first time, put in the chat as well if this is your first time joining us. Would like to know and recognize some of the folks that may be new to the platform. But if you want to get more information on Student Housing Insight, you can go check us out at studenthousinginsight.com. There's also, if you want to, as far as with Shop Talk, everything with Shop Talk is actually separate. Again, it's hosted by Student Housing Insight, but it's actually led by a panel of 6 leadership committee members that we meet typically every other month to talk about what's happening in the industry and what are the things that we need to be talking about from an operations standpoint. And again, Student Housing Insight is just the host of it. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the new leaders that are joining the leadership committee next month. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. Actually, I'm sorry, not next month, but September. We do not do a Shop Talk in August. Well, hey, I want to take care of just a couple of housekeeping things because we are not going to be doing a policy and legislative update. Dave and the guys from NMHC were tied up today, and we were not going to be able to make that happen. But again, you guys are using the chat. Love to see that. Want to make sure that we call that out. And if you've got any questions that you want to ask our panelists today, make sure that use the chat for that. Just put a Q in front of it, and that way Jan, who's helping me from a production side, he can star that and make sure that we get it up on the screen for our panelists to see. So, well, guys, with that being said, I want to go over a few industry updates that are coming up. Let me kind of switch here so you can see this a little bit better. Here's some industry events that are coming up. NMHC is going to be doing their student housing conference in October. That's going to be in Scottsdale this year at the Hyatt Resort. Registration is open for that, so make sure that you go check that out on their website. We'll try to get that the link to that in the chat here in just a second. Early bird registration or early bird pricing, I should say, in September 19th. So make sure that you save yourself a couple $100 to do that. While we're all out in Scottsdale for the NMHC Student Housing Conference, we will also be hosting our annual TopGolf Mixer. We've been doing this for a couple of years now. That is also going to be a fundraising event for the College Student Mental Wellness Advocacy Coalition and the How Are You Project. There'll be a lot of information that we'll be sending out. And if you're attending and you're an owner and operator, we'll be sending you an invite once you register with NMHC. So be on the lookout for that as well. A couple of things that are coming up that Biz Now is going to be doing in Atlanta on July 30th. They've got their Atlanta Student Housing and Higher Education Summit. I believe that's at the W in downtown Atlanta. It's about a half-a-day event. If you go to our website, studenthousinginsight.com, and click on events, you can actually get a discount on that. It's not a large registration fee. I think it's about $130. And you'll be able to save another, I don't know, $15, $20 if you use the code that's on our website. Again, it's studenthousinginsight.com and then /events. And then they've also got a digital summit that's coming up September 24th. So that's a webinar that they're doing. And want to go ahead and let you know about LeaseCon TurnCon. I think this is probably the earliest that the guys at Interface have been promoting that. It's gotten bigger and bigger each year, and we're going to be doing or helping them out with that. It's December 8th through 9th. So if you're a regional leasing and marketing person, if you're a regional facilities manager or a portfolio director, this is the conference that you want to make sure that you get to. And again, that's December 8th and 9th, LeaseCon TurnCon in Charlotte. And if you want to go, we're also, Student Housing Insight is going to be giving 3 scholarships away. It's not just giving you free registration. You've also got a $500 Visa gift card or round trip airfare. And then also up to a 2-night stay at the Hilton Uptown Charlotte, which is the venue that the conference is at. And then of course, registration fees would be waived as well. So if you want information on either nominating yourself or nominating a colleague to receive that, that scholarship, just scan that QR code and fill out the information there. Well, with that being said, I want to go ahead and bring up Charlie Matthews to get the last update before we put a bow on it in September. Charlie, how are you doing?
I need a haircut. Yeah, definitely need a haircut.
Yeah.
My what do you call it? I've been working from home. My laptop computer thing hasn't been working, so I haven't been able to see myself. So for all of you listening, I apologize. But I dressed up, as you can tell.
I can tell.
Doing good. Melting away here in Atlanta. But no, all is well. Excited to, I guess, give kind of some final thoughts before. Well, I would imagine a couple markets probably starting kind of the move out process, but for turn. And, I think we're plus or minus 45 days away from kind of finalizing where the leasing cycle ended. So yeah, a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, but no, excited to share some good news today, at least.
Well, let's get into it. But really quick, will you be at that Biz Now conference?
If I can get a haircut before then, yeah.
Please get a haircut.
It's actually the one event that's in Atlanta. So, myself and a couple of my crew will be over there. We got to get. It's funny. France Media is literally Interface Conference Group is one building over, and I tell Tim and Rich and all those guys are like, why don't we do something here to make it easier on you and me? So, haven't won that battle, but I'm still fighting the good fight there.
Well, hey, let's jump into in. I was able to go through this yesterday, and things are still looking good, and excited to share this info. I know we've got some markets that people are a little bit worried about, but
definitely
let's get into the national and regional outlook.
Yes. So national, from a national perspective, 86.8, about 1.6% ahead. All this information as of last Friday. So whatever that would be, the 17th, give or take. It says 18th on here just because that's when it finally hit the snapshot. But generally speaking, things have been rock. I mean, from a leasing perspective, if you look at what happened last last year around this time, everyone was like, where is everyone? Obviously, there's still some markets that are that way, but from generally speaking, things are back ahead. I'd say about a point or so, or let's say a point, about 80 basis points behind where it was in the previous leading cycle. So this time in 23. But we're finally seeing, some steady increase. I mean, I'm seeing some markets that are 8-10% ahead, right? Depending on, what's the cause and effect there. But, the Southeast and the West are really driving the vast majority of that. Seen a little bit of slowdown actually in the Midwest. That was if you look back at previous, they were ahead for the vast majority of the cycle, but I guess ahead, they're still ahead, but leading all regions. But the Southeast and the Southwest have really shown some strong performance here over the last about 60, 90 days, which again is the vast majority of the beds in student housing are in that Southeast region. And then the West is a little bit later from a leasing perspective, just when the school years are a little bit later than you'd say starting in the Southeast, but seeing a 2.7% ahead on the West Coast is super compelling. So generally speaking, things are sitting good. Again, there's a handful of markets that people are like, what's kind of the deal here?
I would love to see folks in the chat if you could, kind of, if it's your portfolio or if you're at the site level, kind of what's happening year over year. Are you ahead, behind, or about the same? So, well, great. You want to head on over to rental rates, or you?
Yeah, this has actually tapered down slightly, and you see that
it had to, right? I mean,
it had to. I mean, again, you're seeing, and again, you have your levers from a standpoint of what's driving supply demand. But I think this top number nationally peaked at like 1,010, and you're down $5. But again, you're seeing a little bit of rate drop to put the last handful of heads in beds. I'd say the only market, I wouldn't say the only. The reason we're seeing the most, I'd say, drop there would be the Midwest. That was a little bit higher from a percentage basis, from a rate growth perspective, but still roughly 4.7% ahead year over year. Again, last year we also saw a little bit of a dip, and it's just cyclical in nature. But no, I mean, we're still strong. I'd imagine that number continues to kind of taper off there towards the end, as it always does. But ultimately, a lot of the outperformance, you're seeing a lot more sensitivity around rate, and affordability has always been the biggest question. And the challenge that I guess to the benefit, there's just not as much supply as there was previously. When I say previously, pre-COVID or 2014, 2019, about 53,000 beds were delivered every year. Since that time frame, to my knowledge, we're about 36,000. So you're down about 17,000 beds. And again, we've seen enrollments really, really continue to tick upwards at a lot of these tier 1, tier 2 institutions. So again, every market's different, every lever is different, but ultimately still, plus 4% from a rate growth perspective is strong in relation to other asset classes.
Yeah. I had a question for you because I was putting some numbers together. It was last week. I was presenting a panel at Star Res's user conference, and so it's mostly housing administrators as well as off-campus services directors and things like that, and just giving them some of the information that you provided to me. I was looking at a few markets, like I think it was Auburn. It's I think 34% ahead year over year from a pre-leasing perspective. Is that right, or was that the no? I'm sorry. That was on the I should have put those slides up. I think it was 34%. All of these it was four markets: Auburn, Blacksburg, maybe Chapel Hill. Three of them were SEC market. I think Missouri, Columbia, Missouri was one. But there was they had more than 7% price increase, 7-8% price increase. And Auburn's was like ridiculous. It was 34% price increase is what I was showing. but they were all showing 2, 3, 4% behind year over year in that market from a pre-leasing standpoint. And kind of the question was, okay, has the price increased enough there that we're starting to see pushback? And some of the folks that were in those markets had mentioned that, they're even hearing about gift cards and concessions and things like that. Just kind of curious if that's, are you seeing, is that mostly an SEC, Southeast region kind of thing? Because everything I was looking at, it was kind of that SEC Southeast region where
I mean, it's a great question. And the nuance at Auburn is they actually tore out a couple dorms. They're renovating them and putting them on. So you also have a deficit of on-campus beds there. But I'd say, generally speaking, that's a market where you've seen some strong enrollment growth, and there hasn't been much growth from an on-campus perspective. So you've got, an increasing student body, more off campus, or I think the first new dev in a handful of years actually is delivering this fall. So again, you've got a very strong supply demand story there that's driving those things. I mean, ultimately, I just checked it, the market's like 94+%. So again, that's pretty strong from a demand standpoint. It shows that there's a lack of supply. The Southeast is seeing the vast majority, let's put an asterisk next to maybe Madison, Wisconsin, Tempe, Arizona, and College Station, Texas, seeing the vast majority of the supply from a go forward basis. Again, you've got really strong fundamentals from a university student's perspective. They're growing is the best way to think about it. They're marquee college towns. You don't have as many urban centers, which we did a whole thing, if you remember Shop Talks ago, broke out the, your true college towns versus like your urban markets, think like Atlanta, Austin, et cetera. You're seeing a lot of students that are going to these larger state schools and they need beds. So themes, I could say the same thing about a lot of other markets, west of the South. We're seeing that too. It really just depends. So hard to say, but again, you're seeing those schools in the Southeast, whether it's the ACC, SEC, whatever the conferences are these days. You're seeing just
I can't say ACC is a Southeast conference.
Yeah, enrollment growth is kind of crazy, and different levers are being pulled. And like I actually was running through Fayetteville, Arkansas this morning, University of Arkansas. If you look at from 2019 onwards, you have enrollment like this, right? So ultimately, there's some new supply that's coming, but that's what's driving a lot of this. But I mean, in speaking specifically floor plan focus, like everything is relatively strong. I mean, you're upwards of, from your most expensive floor plan types, like the ones, the twos, they're above the national average from a pre-leasing perspective. The fours being the largest number here we're looking at, they're 1.2% ahead, 40 basis points behind the national, but at the same time, like the fundamentals are super strong. Obviously, again, there's some markets that are slower than others. And a lot of that is due to a lot of the supply. But ultimately, universities continue to grow, and you're seeing pockets of supply come in, but not every market's getting a new building, and there's a handful that haven't gotten in 4 or 5 years. So, that's what's driving a lot of this is just that whole story. And again, you look here, everything's ahead. Whether it's 80 basis points, 3.5. Obviously, the sixes, there's very few of those, but worth calling out. But yeah, and we're seeing here from a rates perspective, the fours again driving a lot of that, I guess, normalized levels of what people would underwrite at 3% across the board. And the 3 bedrooms where you're saving, God, I'm going to make myself do math, about $180, $178 from going from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, right? Yeah. So from an affordability standpoint, I mean, that's find another friend. So again, I continue to remain bullish on student housing. I mean, last year we ended from an occupancy perspective a handful of basis points under 92% occupancy. I feel like that number is going to be beat for sure this year, and we're back closer to that 93 number that has been consistent over the last 3 or 4 years. Gotcha.
Yeah. Great. Anything else on this last slide you want to talk about?
No. Again, I think, one to all of you on the ops side out there, best of luck over the next 60 days as it relates to turn, and the fun thing that is the move and move out. Important dates though, Wes, I know you mentioned this prior before I jumped on, but we will call the last day of leasing for this year the Friday after Labor Day. That's when everything will start over. So that would be
so it's like the 5th.
No, that'd be I had this handy, I had it written down. 5th, and then the first day of next year will be the 12th, right? Obviously for
okay, got you. The first year.
The 12th, but that'll be the last day we call for pre-leasing, and then we'll flip everything over that weekend, that Monday, et cetera. And then the 12th will be the first day of next AY 26, 27.
Gotcha.
So
that seems way earlier than last year.
Well, we're seeing, I mean, normally we do it the same way. It's just the
where Labor Day falls.
First day it's where Labor Day really falls. But I know like there's a couple markets out on the West Coast that will manage differently. Like Eugene, Oregon, I know is like the latest of all. So
gotcha. So we may even by the next Shop Talk September 11th. So we could have a end of season report to review by then. Is that what you're saying?
I'm gonna say probably, but don't hold me to it. At least preliminary numbers. Obviously, some stuff needs to kind of continue to roll in, but definitely for the Southeast, the Southwest, and the North, and the Midwest, the West Coast again. That might be a little bit of some nuance there, depending on those markets. But
gotcha.
If we need to do a regional breakdown of how things looked, absolutely will. But from a national perspective, might give it another week or so.
Gotcha. Well, great. Well, I appreciate the update.
Absolutely.
And we'll all keep our fingers crossed that everybody finishes the.
Yeah, and we'll send out. We post and publish all this stuff, but we'll send another report at the end of or the first week of August or so, and we can continue to track it. I know we're not going to be on Shop Talk, but check our website. If you're a client, you'll get it in your inbox. But yeah,
awesome.
We're 45 days away there, and we're excited. You got a great panel coming up. They're a lot smarter than me, so they can put a lot of context to all this stuff.
Well, speaking of which, I'll go ahead and get them on here. But thanks so much, Charlie, and
absolutely,
we'll see you in September.
All righty, brother. You have a good.
See you. All right, well, let's head on over to our topic of the month, which is what's ahead for the 2025-26 student housing operating cycle as we close out things here with the 24-25 cycle. There's a lot of things that have been on my mind recently, especially around enrollment and that type of thing that keeps me up a little bit at night. And from a total operation standpoint, there's a lot of things in this next year that we've got to think about, that our operators have to think about. So I wanted to spend this month, as far as our topic of the month, talking with operators from different perspectives on what's keeping them up at night. So I asked them that question. I'm going to bring that up here really quick. As we enter the next academic cycle, what are you and your teams wrestling with? And this was a list of things that we talked about this week. And so instead of, while I'll have everybody introduce themselves, I want to go ahead and really quick put this list up here. And then I want to hear from you guys exactly what you want us to start with, because I don't know that we'll get through this entire list in the next 35 minutes. So let us know in the chat which topic you want to hear from the panel discuss first, and we'll kind of rank it from there. Jan is going to be watching the comments and see what we need to start off with. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and introduce the panel. Whitney, we'll start with you.
Hey, Wes. Thank you for having me on. Everyone on the call, thank you for joining us today. If I've not had the pleasure of meeting you personally, I'm Whitney Kidd, and I serve as the Senior Vice President of Innovation and Technology at the Price Company and our tech engine, Iris Technologies. So I oversee all of our corporate technology strategy, as well as figuring out what works for the industry so that we can share and accelerate how we all adopt technology. Even though we compete, we want the best for everyone, and that's what I focus on in the day-to-day.
Great. Pam, let's go to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Pam West. I am Senior Vice President of Operations with Campus Advantage, and I oversee a large third-party portfolio throughout the company. Nice to see everyone.
Gotcha. And Sean, we'll go to you next, but just really quick, I want to remind everybody, put it in the chat. Which one do you want us to cover first? Because right now we've got like a tie. So, all right, Sean.
A lot of good topics out there. Sean Devine, Core Spaces, EVP of Property Operations and Experience. And I wholeheartedly agree Charlie needs a haircut. So hopefully he can snip that and figure that out, because that's it's getting a little out of control there, Charlie.
If I make it to Atlanta next week to go to the BizNow conference and I see him and it's not, I'm going to bring clippers. Just
absolutely should.
And his haircut will look like yours. It will not look like his normal haircut.
It's called a good turn haircut, Wes. We got to get it
right.
out there. It's a little too humid in Atlanta to have that type of salad on top.
Jake.
Hey, y'all. I missed the memo on my last name and my title here, so I apologize. I guess I'm just Jake, no last name and no title. I'm Jake Jarman from Redstone Residential. I serve as our Chief Revenue Officer. I'm in charge mostly of our leasing department and our sales department, which I thoroughly love, and could talk about that for days. It's a pleasure to be here with you. These are some exciting topics, and it's the hardest time of the year for all of us in this industry. So kudos to everyone for surviving thus far, and grab some caffeine and some protein bars, because we still got a ways to go. Let's buckle up. Let's go.
Well, great. Well, I think data sharing has won the first topic here, so we'll jump into that. Most of everyone knows that from a market intelligence and data sharing standpoint, there's been some lawsuits and some things. It's a lot of discussion and a lot of risk analysis, because I think courts and anytime something ends up getting litigated, it takes forever to get any kind of clear, concise answer. And so there's been some concerns, and some folks have kind of closed up in sharing some of the data. And I want to bring up a video from a recent podcast that John Barr at Denderstein actually did with Nick Hill from Up Campus, where this was Nick's hot take. So let's play that really quick.
So a couple things. When COVID happened, we as an industry went from holding and hoarding information, like market survey information, to then, hey, we're all in this together.
Yes.
We're just trying to survive.
Yep.
What's going to happen to college? What's going to happen to student housing? Let's all make sure we all keep our head above water.
Yes.
The industry opened up, we shared information, and I think all boats rose with that.
I agree.
Now we're seeing, for various reasons, people are starting to hoard information again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really hurts from the bottom up of, like, you're not sure some of the largest players, you don't know what their velocity
100%.
is on certain floor plan types, rate changes. So I just would love to see the industry open back up, because I think it's a win for everybody.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more.
So let's start at the top. I'm sure everybody's in an uncomfortable situation and wanting to discuss this, but let me just, Jake, I'll kind of throw it to you first, because you and I have had some discussions about, I was in a market and was looking at one of your properties, and on my website, as I was on my telephone on the website, as I'm kind of driving through, and right there on the front page, it's actually got whatever the percentage was back in March when I was driving through that market. And, I was like, okay, well, I don't even have to go into the office and ask how they're doing. I know exactly how they're doing. So,
Wes, is it collusion if you just tell everybody what you're doing? Right?
I think if it's public information, I think we're okay.
And that's what's interesting. And that's really what we're all looking at here is, how can we share information with each other? How can we be good partners, business friends? and still all of us, rise with the same tide, and at the same time, not be in the crosshairs of some type of a collusion issue. And that's really where we're all at. And the reality is that nobody has the answers right now. And we figured, look, if we have it front and center on the website, just like we have our rates, then is it collusion? No. We're the only ones who are doing it. And we also had it on there for FOMO, creating sense of urgency to show what our leasing velocity was looking like. I don't know if it's the right thing to do or if it's the best thing to do. However, they're not wrong from that previous clip that you just showed, Wes. We've got to be working together, and we've got to be cautious, right? We don't want to have accusations that there is collusion, but there are ways for us to share information and to talk about things and to continue to help each other versus hoarding all the information.
Yeah, I could tell you from, I mentioned earlier about being at that StarRes user conference in Denver last week, and hearing from the folks at the university side, asking for this data because they've got, they've got folks that are on, that can't get on campus because we're right in that kind of time frame where folks, are being made aware, hey, you're on a waiting list or whatever. And, there's no real good source for them to go to and say, okay, who should I start pointing these people to? Because I don't even want to waste a property manager's time of me calling them and saying, do you have any room or not? Because I don't know if they're telling me the truth. Maybe they're just, wanting to boost their own waiting list. So, and they want to do the right thing for the students and be able to streamline that for them. So, I know the university partners are disappointed about, where things have gone with that as well. So anybody else want to take a crack at this?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Wes, I think as we were kind of preparing for this, we knew that this was going to be at the forefront, right? Market sharing, understanding what's going on. And I think I referenced to Whitney, this is a pivot back from the AI conversation, right? We are all getting into this world where data is at the fingertips, and now we're pivoting back. I think what we've really looked at in this new world from a market share standpoint is kind of getting back to the basics a little bit, right? Looking at websites, trying to come, to conclusions from that standpoint, but really focusing back on what we are doing internally, right? Still focusing in on the lead follow-up. What are the prospects actually saying? I think there have been a point in time where maybe we had pivoted a little too far to just what is the pre-leasing? What are the rates, right? Which is really good data. But I think that had taken our eyes off the ball as operators of saying, hey, do we have the best team in place? Are we using all the tools, Elise AI and other things that can absolutely help the leasing process? And looking at our velocity year over year, just from our own internal data, I think that's a big focus of ours this year coming up as we kind of look at this new world of market share. But I think it's really kind of that challenge of everything is AI technology, but this feels like we're reverting back a few steps. So I think that's probably the hardest thing to overcome.
Yeah. Pam, Whitney, any thoughts?
No, I was going to say, I agree with Sean. I think for us, it's really looking at our own assets and then, really digging into the customer service, because this is where you have to be your best. You don't know what everybody else is doing, then just be the best out there and make sure that you can win the sale when they walk through the door. So that's really what our focus has been.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And we spoke about it yesterday in our planning call, but this industry did really well when we were still looking at data a quarter in arrears with Axio, and that Charlie and I got to be friendly competitors. And so I think our fundamentals are strong as we're seeing. We're still able to move and accelerate this asset class with the data that we're being given. I do have hopes for the future that we're able to get back to where we were in regards to being able to share data that makes sense, right? There's a drastic difference between collusion and collaboration. And I think this industry has always strived for the collaboration portion of that. So looking forward to when things might settle down. But again, our industry is strong and we continue to see great numbers across the board. And we've operated, but like Sean said, we just have to take a step back here for a moment and go back to the way that things used to be.
Wes, what if our challenge is, as operators, is going to be to work with our clients and help our clients understand, because they're all clamoring for this data, right? All of the investors and clients are saying, Jake, where are we at? How is my asset doing? And comparison to the assets in the market. And where we have less detail, if we can't find ways to collaborate or to get that detailed information, part of this is going to be helping our clients and investors understand that we're going to be focusing intently on our own personal year over year, or focusing intently on what does our own customer service look like, to Whitney's, Pam's, and Sean's point. But there's still to remain, there is a crucial stakeholder in this process that we're going to have to retrain and help them understand why I don't have the exact information that they got accustomed to receiving.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, or should we go to our next question? Well, I think it's going to be on international students, and let's well, actually, you know what? I think let me go back to the comments really quick. We may have had two for enrollment cliff. Yeah, let's go to that one, because I've actually got sent out. If you're not getting our emails inviting you to Shop Talk, make sure that you actually go to shoptalk.info and subscribe there. And that way you're not just finding out about it on LinkedIn or from another associate. You actually get those invites each month. And this month when I sent, or this week when I sent it out, I actually popped in a button for folks that wanted to ask a question, and we actually did get a question on enrollment cliff. This was even before before we had our prelim call. This is from Dylan Webster at Leap. We keep hearing more and more about the looming enrollment cliff, with experts predicting a steep enrollment decline in 2025 due to a shrinking college age population. Have any of you mapped strategies for the coming years to address this demographic change? I don't know how many of you are having kids to try to address this, but I think that's the only way we can address this. And other than Elon Musk, I don't know that anybody's actually mapping out a plan for this. But yeah, what are the discussions like? Because we've been kind of tracking this for 10 years now. That this dip is coming. Not only do we have this dip now, we've got situation with international students that we'll talk about here shortly, where we're expecting a dip in enrollment from them. And then I think we've also just got there's this value proposition of higher ed that I think is really becoming front and center. And we may be looking at a kind of a perfect storm of things here in the next 5 years to a decade. So any thoughts, what kind of discussions are you guys having?
I'll at least kick it off. The one good thing I think is we all partner with a great partner in these markets that are the universities, right? And so I kind of answered in two phases, right? We've always seen this, where if enrollment from international students starts to drop, COVID, et cetera, you'll see a higher acceptance of domestic students, right? They are going to fill their spots. Now, I think this is very specific to certain markets, certainly Power 4, Tier 1.
Yeah, any of your flagship.
Yeah, flagships
are going to be able to do that.
And I think you're starting to, even during COVID, you started to see a little bit more of a pivot towards that. Certainly directional schools and, that next level of university, I think has some risk. But I think, at least from that standpoint, the really positive is they are going to find that opportunity. I think you also said something really impactful there in terms of the proposition value. I think we've also seen a lot of these partners or universities go and look at the AI courses, go and look at embracing this technology. And I think you've seen a lot of those schools, really start to say, hey, this isn't just we're going to stay away from it. Professors, you can't use ChatGPT to write papers. It's let's pivot towards that. And I think what that's also going to create is an ability for maybe a longer runway of education and or some adults coming back. We've always seen that in recessions and other situations where folks will come back to school. So I think while we may have a dip just from the birth rate standpoint, I think there's actually, these schools are preparing themselves to continue to see that enrollment and figure out, online AI courses, longer investments in education to change that proposition value, which will certainly help their enrollment. But I think that's where we're looking really in terms of mapping out how we're looking at this enrollment dip or cliff.
Yeah, it's definitely something. Campus Advantage, Lindsey Brown is amazing at digging into these things. And, obviously we talked about how resilient student housing was during COVID, and I think it will be the same, during this enrollment cliff. I think retention is going to be really important. I think, you're going to focus on the value, but also on your retention. If there's already students, living with you, how do you keep them for a little bit longer than maybe they would normally stay? So that will be one of our focuses, is retention. And then just the value of the asset. They're going to want, they have the same expectation, but maybe for a little bit of less, they want the value of it. So we'll be digging into that piece of it as well.
Yeah, it's good points, Pam. And I'll take this from two perspectives. One, macro level, looking at the birth rate replacement. Many of you have heard me speak on this. I'm obviously a big proponent for family leave and supporting parents in the workplace. That's something that we have to keep our eye on the ball here, because your current coworkers are building our next generation of college students. And so we do need to make sure we're continuing to focus on supporting families. And we are below the replacement rate, and we have been for quite some time. Other countries are suffering even more so than the US. So something to keep, just a focus on as we continue within our own organizations. We can do a tremendous amount in the private sector. One perspective I think is quite interesting that I heard someone else speak on, his name's Chamath Palihapitiya, is there's a lot of fear. I'm a techie, right? There's a lot of fear that AI will replace college. And I don't think that's going to happen. I align with his perspective, and that perspective is there's still a large amount of professional development that happens in college. And if that's not happening at a university setting, do you think that the corporate America is going to want to absorb that cost? And I think the overwhelming answer is no, right? They're going to still continue to have downward pressure to have college degrees, because they're not going to want to invest 4 years in a professional development or more, as Sean said, right? This may be an extended runway. And so that's a different way to look at it. How we're talking to some of our investors as well at Price is there's still a place for the university, even as AI expands and education changes, and it will change over the coming years. But we're still confident, again, for the need for college, because students are going to need that time, or professionals coming back, to really gain their skills that are even outside of just the core academics we're used to seeing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think save our jobs, have more kids.
That's right.
But I've given my 4 to society. I'm not I'm not adding any more to that. So, all right. Anything else on enrollment cliff, guys? Cool. Let's I want to go ahead and, why is this not adding back up here? Go back and look at the comments really quick again. See if there's something specific let's talk about legislative and compliance. Dominique put that one in, and I think we talked a little bit about what's going on from a standpoint of data sharing and that type of thing. There's been a lot of stuff around fee transparency that's currently in the in the courts as well. But what kind of topics are you guys wrestling with, at night when you're trying to go to sleep when it comes to legislation and compliance?
I'll kick us off here. So there was something that happened in the big, beautiful bill, whether you think it's beautiful or not, that put AI regulation back to the states. So they were trying to make a push to have that regulated at a federal level, and it is going to remain with the states. So something for us all to look at, because we all have some form of AI utilization, either consumer facing or internally, is how that's going to be impacted. So a few states have already pushed out their own specific legislation. Colorado's one, Illinois is a new one, and there's a few others. That's something we're going to have to monitor. as we've seen with other aspects in technology or even our business, fee transparency, some of these other topics, having a state-by-state decision can make things more complex to navigate. So we've got our eye really focused in on that. We're working really heavily with NMHC and their AI governance committee to make sure that as an industry, we're educated on any of the new regulations coming out of AI, because this administration may not target that, but the next might. So just need to make sure we're keeping our eye on the ball there. And again, that's going to be more complex in years to come.
Yeah, I think you said something earlier on, Wes, where it was, when are we going to get the kind of resolution to some of these decisions, right? I think that's what we're all kind of seeing. I mean, specifically fee transparency. I think, all of us and everyone on this, call probably has had many conversations about what does this mean? What does this look like? Are we using a calculator? Are we not using a calculator? Are we, what fee? Is it required fees? Is it, potential fees? And I think that, again, back to, I think Jake's point of like collaboration is a good thing too, right? Like that, it allows us to do that. I think all of us, for the most part, certainly on this panel, but certainly probably within the call and folks that really kind of buy into this collaboration, we want, good industry standards, right? Like I'm sure we can all name a few markets that, have less than reputable, landlords in them. And we want to have that. We want to have that experience. We want to have the user experience for the residents, for the students. And I think that's really where we're trying to say, let's all go in this together. And if we have that standard and it's a good standard, it's going to be better for the industry. So I think there's, the kind of whirlwind of what does this actually mean? But I think most of us are leaning towards, well, let's do the right thing. And that will always be the right thing to do.
No, that's a good point. And I think, NMHC has been at the forefront of so much of that, and really encourage all the operators and ownership groups to join NMHC, because there's a lot that they've gotten us through, the past 4 or 5 years that none of us ever saw coming. And Whitney, we talked a little bit about RETSI. This might be a kind of a good opportunity to kind of educate everybody on what's going on with that initiative, because you're a part of that, and you're definitely having those discussions on how to move things forward and how to make sure everybody's informed.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not familiar, NMHC launched RETSI this past year, and that's the Real Estate Technology Transformation Center. And the goal, and I don't speak on behalf of NMHC, but I am a part of the steering committee. The goal of that is to make sure that NMHC was not just looking at real estate legislation, but also technology-driven real estate legislation. So as we look at AI, as we look at some of the items that happen with pricing optimization, NMHC wants to be a core partner there to make sure that we are educating those on the Hill around what's going on and what's truly being impacted by our industry, and how we're helping consumers and not trying to harm them in the process. Now, there will be some shifts this year for OpTech. If you've ever attended, or if you do want to attend a favorite conference of mine, you do have to be a RETSI member this year. So I've got an article that I'm going to have Wes send out to everyone following, just outlining what that means. But there will be some changes that come along with that to help support the RETSI initiative. Again, just a great focus, I think, coming from NMHC around real estate-driven tech and how to make sure that we're educating in the process so we don't get stuck into some of these challenging situations that we have in years past, where really the technology was not understood. I could go on for days about that because I built some of that tech, but hoping that this will help us in the future and make sure that everyone has a great understanding of how we're utilizing the tech and how it actually helps consumers.
Well, yeah, thanks for letting everybody know about that. We'll get that out, and probably end of month. Since we're already at the end of the month, we'll probably put that in our newsletter. So look for it there. And then I don't know, Whitney, maybe you want to post something on LinkedIn for those that may want to get to it quicker. I'm sure they could find a lot of it out on the NMHC website as well. But hey, let's go to our next topic. And I think this kind of makes the most sense when we get into AI and technology integration. We had a pretty robust conversation about things that you guys have put out this past year, and things that are on the roadmap for this next year. And I'm excited to talk a lot about that. But really quick, I wanted to just play this quick video again from the recent Tough Talk series that John Barr, one of our SHI ambassadors, did with Jacob Kozier at Elise AI. So let's play that really quick.
Kosher. He got some hot takes constantly. So, Jacob, what's your hot take on the industry right now?
If you went to any industry conference in like 2022 to 2024, it was all centralization. Centralization this, centralization that. Late 2024, now obviously in 2025, it is AI automation.
Yep.
So these big topics that everybody's talking about, you can't go to a conference or pick up an industry article, open multifamily dive without seeing articles about that. But all of that is actually like the relative easy stuff.
Yeah.
What people are not talking about is what everybody is challenged with, which is the change management. How do I get my on-site teams on board with this new technology? How do I get them over tech fatigue? How do I get my regional managers on board? Because they came from on-site, but they're not using the technology, but they also have to be the ones to explain the technology to their ownership groups.
Yes.
There's just so much change management involved in it. And I think anybody you talk to, when you get down to it, whether it's AI or a new marketing tool or we're changing a policy, it's the change management that's the most difficult stuff.
100%.
And you go to a conference and there is no panel on change management.
No, and I'll say this specifically, like our industry is always changing. Like there's always, and it's like, to your point, it doesn't matter if it's AI, it doesn't matter if it's centralization, it doesn't matter if it's marketing, whatever the case. Like we need to be talking about how things are changing and how we manage the change within our teams before, because like the tech is always going to be there to support. There's a solution out there for everything. Like I truly believe it. But the solutions are only as good as our team members are in using those tools. Yeah. And so my role specifically was made to help deploy AI and centralization tools and future tech. And like that has been so the tech works. It doesn't. There's never been a time where I don't think the tech isn't working. It's how do I get that to translate to rolling out on 60 properties that month or in 1 month or so forth.
So I wish tech always worked, because I've had a ton of problems with tech today. But I mean, Whitney, I want to kind of throw this back to you first, because this is right up your alley. With leading innovation at Price, and mainly because you guys purchased a humanoid robot. And I just want to know, is it plunging toilets yet?
It's not plunging toilets yet. But she did learn a new dance the other day. That was quite fun. So while we're not yet to plunging toilets, we are great in the dance category. So yes, lots to come with Donna, our humanoid robot. I think what's shocking about her, and this will go to what we just discussed, is we're actually going to have her in a leasing concierge experience. That's something I targeted last, but we're actually accelerating that forward because of the rate of AI. And everybody knows it. We're all hearing about AI, but this isn't a buzzword, right? Jacob was talking about how we usually get trends every couple of years. This one is going to stay with us. And what I have notated is the change management process is absolutely a hurdle in real estate, as well as when you look at the physical infrastructure side as our capital cycles. So we really need to focus on those in the coming years. But I do think there's an opportunity across all of real estate to have more focus in these roles at a corporate position. And it doesn't have to be my role. It could be a project management team or whatever suits your particular organization. I know that when I came into student housing, almost 20 years ago, almost every major player had a CPO or a CIO. I see less and less of that as time goes on, especially in our sector. And that needs to be refocused. You can upskill your current teams. You can bring in outside resources, work with consultants. The rate of change that we're seeing is very comparable. I'm not even old enough to tell you that I went through this transformation, but it's very comparable to when the World Wide Web came. And we were trying to teach people how to use computers at a community, right? How to go from paper guest cards to a computer. That's such a transformational change. Now, take what we have with AI today. That's going to be 100x of what we saw when we transitioned to the web. And it will continue to accelerate even beyond limits that I can envision currently today. And I live in the future. That's what I'm paid to do, is think about what's ahead. And so I would say to every team, I know we're all focused in on AI, you're using Lease or other tools, but there's so many different optimizations that we can focus on. So at Price specifically, we have a project called Project Rise, and we are taking interviews and surveys and finding any mundane task or a task that could be automated and documenting that and seeing where we can either apply AI or apply a process change. And so again, we're all thinking the resident side of things, and that's very important, but there is so much transformation that's going to happen even at our corporate levels that people need to pay attention to. If not, you're going to be looking like the companies, right, that didn't go online. Think of Sears, think of all of those different organizations that didn't embrace the change when, we went into the World Wide Web and went into that sector. That's what we're facing now, but again, just even more intensified. So would love to hear others' perspectives here, but that's what I see every day, and I get to work with external clients as well still, and see there's just such a need for more tech operations and project management at our corporate teams to help through these changes.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, I'll challenge John Barr, who I've known since his community assistant days there in Ellensburg, Washington. But
he gives you all the credit, by the way.
Well, listen, someone's got to take it, good or bad. But change management, I'll defend the teams on site a little bit here. Frankly, I think they're embracing that, right? I think that some of the change management, for me at least prospectively, is from the client side, the ownership side, right? I think that rolling these out, and to kind of use Jacob's conversation there, centralization was the high talk. We would have folks very interested in the centralization conversation. We'd go back and say, we're going to roll this out. And they say, whoa, wait a second. I don't want it to affect my leasing or my expenses, or wait, how expensive is this? And I think that that is as much of the change management for the teams on site is the change management for the ownership groups, and just how quickly we can get a cost-effective solution in place, I think is the big win from that standpoint. Because again, this is a real estate, this is returns, this is, performance, underwriting. I think the balancing of that is just as big of a key for change management up the stream as much as it is to the teams on site.
I'm curious, something you mentioned there, about especially the students, the student staff, I should say, embracing it. There's a lot of prop tech that is specific to our industry and is now expanded, into multifamily that, these student properties were incubators. I think about, the mail package service and getting notifications out. I think about a lot of that resident portal stuff. A lot of that really started by students that some of us on this call were, the bosses off, 15 years ago.
Well,
so, are you seeing that today? Are you seeing your student staff say, hey, let me build out an AI bot to do this or do that?
You're seeing it, certainly, and I would even give our marketing team at Core Spaces a huge kudo. They did a whole presentation on Gen Alpha as Gen Z starts to enter the workforce, and you're starting to see the beginning traces of Gen Alpha coming into student housing. It is truly the first generation that has been completely on social media. They that's what their life is, and certainly I think, from a good operating standpoint, it is asking the teams on site that have lived this, what are those things? Your point exactly, Wes, is a lot of those tech solutions, and I think even more as we go, will be coming from those teams on site because they are living it every day in their real world.
Yeah, I agree. I think change management really, like Whitney said, is going to be more at the corporate level. I think our on-site teams are ready for it. They're excited for the tech and the new things. A lot of them don't love to work too hard. So this adds to that piece of it. But I think it's us at the corporate level that, we're old school. A lot of us still want to do things the old way. And it goes along with our owners and our clients as well, as they're used to a certain way. They want to try it, but they don't want to be the first. And so that's where the change is really going to be. And it's going to be education and having someone, I think, like you said, Whitney, at the corporate level that can bring it all together for you and really help you understand it.
All right, Jake, we've got one more minute here left. And, this is
so
going
you're
to be the
saying
last
that I have
topic.
to it better be profound, is what you're saying?
Well, you guys are doing
I-
some pretty interesting things as well.
Well,
And it's,
So look, I'll tell you this, and a lot of people are worried. It's not just our industry are worried that AI is going to take their job. And I heard this great quote the other day, and it said, AI is not going to take your job. Somebody else who utilizes AI better than you is going to take your job.
Mhm.
And I think that's the crux of what we're talking about here, is that AI is here to stay. And as it becomes more mainstream in all of our lives, those who can utilize it better, those are the ones who are going to rise to the top. And those companies who are utilizing it better and finding new ways to do it are going to rise to the top. And so for me, that's the exciting part here. This is the scariest, most exciting time to be alive, and I'm here for it. This is an opportunity for all of us, and this is going to be an opportunity like none we've ever seen before, because of what AI can do for us personally, individually, for our companies, for this world, for each other. It's incredible. And so for anybody who is not just diving deep into AI, either on a personal level or within their companies, I invite you to get on board because you're going to need it. Your companies deserve it. You deserve to be in it as much as possible. And you won't be replaced by AI, but you could easily be replaced by somebody who has really made it part of their routine and part of their life, and allowing it to up-level them. What a phenomenal opportunity we all have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great note to end on. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and especially to this panel, this all-star lineup, and really appreciate you guys taking the time out on what I know is a very busy week for all of your companies, and appreciate you sharing with the rest of the industry. And Sean, just so you know, Sarah Maxon has shared the Gen Alpha, her take on it, and what was presented at the company summit or whatever it was, and she has now nominated them to also do that at LeaseCon TurnCon. So for all the folks that want to hear about Gen Alpha and Core's take on it, because it sounds like you guys did a lot of research on it. So I hope that's something you approve for them to do.
Absolutely. Good collaboration.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks so much. And I'm just going to give a couple of closing statements, but everyone have a great turn, and we'll see you next time. All right. I think I may have moved that over a little too quick, but again, guys, thanks so much for joining, and want to make sure everybody is aware that on our next Shop Talk, we will not have one in August. It will be September 11th in September. So make sure that you join us on September 11th and put that on your calendar. And if you got any value out of what was shared today in the discussions, I just ask that you please share Shop Talk with your colleagues. You can send them to shoptalk.info to register to receive those monthly invites. And we'll see you in September. Have a great turn, everyone. We'll talk soon.